Welcome to How to Build a Tent. This show is not about tent building, but it's how to make you successful. My name is Matt Williams. You find me on the social media sites, How to Build a Tent. You can email me at matt@howtobuildatent.com. Love to hear from you. Love to hear show suggestions, where you are in life, how this show has been blessing you. Would appreciate you to going over to the YouTube channel and subscribing. You can find it on the social media sites. The link, you can find it in the link below in the show notes as well. I just got my teeth cleaned. Highly recommend going more than the twice a year. Yeah, you have to pay a little more, but going every 4 months instead of every 6 months makes a world of difference. Love how fresh my teeth feel. Love it so much. All right, we are part of the Fight Laugh Feast Network. Go over to fightlaughfeast.com, become a member, become a supporter, become somebody that is participating in the work that the Lord is doing. When you become a member, you become someone who is fighting with us and laughing with us and feasting with us. And part of that feasting, you get one of these mugs. Put an HtBT in the memo field and get this mug on top of all the other benefits the network gives you. If you go to even one of the higher tiers, you get 2 mugs. I think they give you a mug as well as this one. So you can go to subscribe to any tier, get my mug. But as long as you put an HtBT in the field. But if you go to the higher tiers, you get their mug, you get a bunch of discounts, you get exclusive content, and most of all, you become somebody who's supporting us and being a part of what the Lord is doing and blessing us. Just reading in Judges today about how some of the tribes were kind of looked down upon, or they were condemned or rebuked by the Lord, is probably the word I was looking for there, for not joining in the fight. And if it's this network, if it's whatever you're doing, not saying it has to be this network, but whatever you're doing, make sure that you are getting in the fight and being part of what the Lord is doing in some area of your life, because God has definitely called us to do that very thing. What else did I want to talk about today? I think that's it. So we can get into the show today. I know you are probably intrigued about the title, and we'll get into that in a second. Before, I wanted to talk about a few other things, and the first one is this commercial I saw about Mazda. And I actually really love the Mazda commercials. I think they're really great. Check out this one. I'm just going to show you the clip because a lot of you guys are listening. I'm not going to show you the whole thing, but for those of you watching, check this out. So this lady picks up her keys, goes out to her car, clicks it, has a beautiful song, a balloon pops up, and you see her floating. And what does it say? Dramatization, don't attempt at home, or something to that effect. It's a small text right now on my screen. I can't really see. And I just thought, man, this is such a beautiful, I'm closing that out. Sorry if I'm really close to the screen. It's such a beautiful ad. And I think they do a great job marketing. If you're looking on tips on how to create marketing videos, I think Mazda is a great one to take a look at. They do a really good job, as I said. But they have to put a disclaimer on the commercial to not try this at home, basically. It's a dramatization. Don't think you can actually do this. What is this? Turn your key into a balloon that allows you to float above the city, thousands of feet above you. Now, why is that there? Well, I'll tell you why. It's because the Mazda lawyers believe that that is required but somebody doesn't try to do it themselves and then blame Mazda for giving them the idea to do it. There's so many things to talk about this, about personal responsibility, about how easy it is to sue people. But I want to drive home on this important part of this, that this culture that we have, where we have allowed people to not take so much responsibility for themselves, where we have allowed in our judicial system for frivolous lawsuits, for these suits to take place, and for rewarding these behaviors and this attitude, we have caused a cost that did not need to be bared on our economy and our community, because these lawyers put in time, put in hours. Mazda hired these lawyers. Lawyers had to go and fight cases like this. Companies had to pay out claims like this, where someone tried to fly with a balloon or whatever it was. I'm not saying it happened on this specific case or with Mazda specifically, but just the overall kind of tenor of our society is that you could be sued for everything, and anyone is looking for a quick buck, even though it's not quick at all. It's a costly buck, but there are lawyers out there who are going to take advantage of people and bring these suits against companies. What does this do for the rest of us? It causes prices to go up because those are costs that are factored into the price of the commercial, of the products, of the operations, and all of these different ways that these companies are functioning. They have to charge more money for their products because of these costs that are put into the suits, the claims, the mitigation risk, the attorneys, all of these things. And it hurts all of us. So can we just, like, as a pact between me and you, just say, we're not going to sue people, especially Christians, and especially over stupid things. Now, I understand there's certain times for suits. I actually was a part of a suit when I was in junior high, but it wasn't for money. We ended up suing for a change of action by a district. But also, there's also like suits to make documents public and things like that. But what I'm talking about is those, I'm going to sue because I did something stupid and I should have known better, but I want a company to give me a lotto ticket. Like, can we just not do that? Can we just trust God to provide for us and not be so money hungry? Because it's hurting us as an economy as a whole, and it ruins beautiful pictures like that of Mazda. But anyways, good job, Mazda. I'm not talking about you. I'm not saying you shouldn't have put that there. I'm just saying it's ridiculous that you have to put that there. And as a society, we should be better. It's like, be better, America. Be better. Second thing I wanted to talk about is Netflix. I kind of talked it up. I'm not going to go into it too much detail, but the Netflix stock has took a hit. It actually did really well for a little bit, which saved me. And then people sold off after their announcement. And one of the big things that made the stock not do so well today was the fact that their earnings are going to be, projected earnings are going to be lower than what the market thought in quarter two. And if you dig down into the reasons why, it's taxes. And the effective tax rate, because of one-time projects that they're going to be doing, from what I understand, is going to cause them to have to pay higher taxes than normal. But after the second quarter, it's going to go down again. Their earnings are going to go up. And I just want to point that out for two reasons. One, I think it's a good opportunity to continue to buy Netflix because that's a one-time thing that's going to happen in the second quarter. And in the third and fourth quarter, all these investments that they're paying off and the taxes are going to come down. I think they're going to have really good third and fourth quarter. One of the things they talked about in their announcement that I listened to, or their overview of their letter that they put out, was that you should think of them as a one half and two half, or I guess there's only two halves, right? A first half and a second half of the year company, and that second half of the year is where earnings really come in. So there might be a great opportunity in the next couple months to be picking up some Netflix. And then also, again, taxes kill not just the company, not just the ability to use that money for other things, but also investors. The tax rate, I mean, the effective tax rate is 48% for Netflix. That's huge, right? Half of it, like almost half, pretty much half, it's going to be going to taxes in the second quarter. That doesn't do good to anybody. Taxes are terrible. All right. So I named this episode Puff Puff Pass. And I want to talk about this because there's a lot of news. There's a lot of companies coming out with the legalization of marijuana. And I want to throw this out here for us Christians is, do you think it's moral to invest in a marijuana company or in multiple marijuana companies? Well, what if it's medical marijuana only? What do you think then? Do you think it is moral? Or what if it's a company that just does that, what is it, the CBD oil where they take out the hallucinogens in it? Like, where do you think what do you think God would have us do with that? And I'm just going to sit there for a second and let you ponder it, let you think about it, maybe you pause it. I want you to really think about that for a second. And I want to throw this out here because maybe I have a controversial stance on it and perspective on it. I definitely didn't read it in the Bible that it says you can invest or not invest in this company. But so this is my opinion of it. And I just think it's really fascinating because it has a negative stigma. But on the other hand, we take all these other medications. Some of them are hallucinogenic. things. I used to be addicted to Vicodin, which has that thick coating. There's Norcos now, which has even more thick coating, and then there's other kinds of things that have really negative impacts that are man-made, that aren't so much, that are bigger and more effective in the positive and the negative, has more consequences for some people than marijuana does. So what do you think? Should we be able to, as Christians, is it wrong for us? Is it a sin? Is it not what God wants us to invest in these companies? And now this is my stance, and I would love to hear a dialogue about it. I'm sure there's some of you guys that have some opinions on this. And again, I'm not like that you should be smoking marijuana or whatever all the time, but this is my stance. I think that as a medical use, it is better to use marijuana than most pain-killing drugs that are man-made. That's my stance, and I'm sticking with it until you prove me wrong. You can email me, direct message me, share the show, get somebody who's really passionate about marijuana. Now, I'm not saying that we should use it all the time. I'm not saying it should be recreational, because the hallucinogens in it again, and I think that drug use is wrong, especially in the Bible. It says don't use the same word for practicing witchcraft and things like that. Pharmakia is where we get pharmaceuticals and things like that. And I'm not for taking drugs often. I don't like doing it unless I absolutely have to. But if you're like after surgery and you have an option between doing marijuana, especially if you can get it without the hallucinogens, which I'm sure is going to be more and more developed, and taking one of those, the man-made, and I'm just saying man-made because, obviously there's different tests and things like that, but there's a lot of drugs out there that we don't even know what they do. And it's funny, so I'm just gonna finish my statement and then I'll go into that. So I think that marijuana is a better option than a lot of these pharmaceutical drugs that are put out there. And if you want to invest in a company that sells pharmaceutical marijuana or those CBD oils that doesn't have the hallucinogen for like health purposes, I think that's okay. I don't know if I would say that is wrong. Now, if you're, drug dealing on the street, that's obviously something completely different. And if your companies are doing it for like recreational, encouraging it, I think that is a big problem for the companies that get high. Why is it? Because I don't think that drug use is God's will for you in the long term over many uses over a long period of time, right? Because you're ineffective, you're not being responsible, you're not being a good steward of your body, and there's actually negative effects that are being shown from doing drugs over a long period of time. But if you're recovering from an injury or things like that. Okay, so that's my position. I was going to say something else. What was I going to say? I forgot about it, but I'll just go on to my next point. So what I also want to say is, even though I don't think it's a bad thing to invest in these companies that are doing these health research and modifying the marijuana to not be hallucinogen and selling it, I don't think it's going to be a good investment just from a business perspective, because there is a strong black market that has been set up for a long time, that has the channels already in place, and they are always going to be cheaper, which means that black market is always going to exist. And how would you like to invest in a company or have to compete with the black market? You're never going to win. You're never going to compete on price. You're never going to be able to undercut other competition with their value, but it's always going to be cheaper because the black market doesn't have to be accountable to the government. Now you can say that the government ensures that it's safe and those black market stuff isn't safe and those kinds of things, but yeah, maybe depending on the quality you get, let's be honest, there's different grades of it on the black market, right? And who you get it from, what they do to it. But you're never going to beat them on price because of that. They don't have to have brick and mortar stores. Obviously, they're not going to have hey, black market marijuana selling place right here. And that is why I'm just staying away from that. I don't think it's necessarily wrong. Maybe there's going to be just a larger investment play where they're doing that and other things, which might be a better place to invest in those kinds of companies. But those pure plays of the marijuana category that are just going to be selling medical marijuana and the CBD oils. I'll take it back. Maybe the CBD oils is a good play because the black market may not go there, and maybe they will. So do your research on that, but I'm just staying away from it. I don't think it's a good play. I don't like how strong the black market is in that segment. And I think that, there's going to be some money to be made, but I think there's just better places to put your money. And that is something that you want to learn as an investor. Forget the drug dealing. For those of you who are still hanging on and haven't written me off, for those of you who are investing, you need to think about this. A company could give you a nice return, and it could be low risk, moderate risk, but another company that you could have put your money instead could have had a better return, better return, and the same kind of risk level. You want to put your money into that company, not the first company. And you need to always be thinking about that because you have a limited amount of resources, a limited amount of investment. You want to be finding the best return on investment you can, not just an okay one, but you want to find the best because you're going to get some losses and you want to make sure that you're getting the best return you can for those losses to kind of hedge against it. All right. Now, the last thing I wanted to talk about, let's see how much time we have here. We got a few minutes. The last thing I wanted to talk about here is the Argentinians. They're freezing prices on some things, flour, oil, and rice. And for those of you older that have lived through the 70s or are economists, you know that this is no good. This is not going to end well, and this is going to be a real disaster. Now, the question is how much of a disaster is it going to be? How much is it going to spread? Argentina has incredible inflation right now, not as credible as Venezuela, but they do have problems with that. And they're going to try to do something that is so politically tempting to do, is to keep prices artificially low. Now, what is that going to do? Well, it's going to do two things. It's going to affect quality and the quantity of the supply. Why? Because price is a mechanism to ration products. And if you take that away, something else has to take its place. So another mechanism has to happen to ration products. Otherwise, if it's all free and there's no rationing of the products, first come, first served, and they're going to take everything they can, right? Because those are valuable resources, flour, oil, and rice. It's like you almost have to have those to live in our culture today, right? Especially in Argentina. But what happens then? So the government sets a new price control, or a new control, not a price control, a new control instead of price. And what is that usually? Well, usually it's a queue, because when there is a price ceiling, that means there's going to be less suppliers willing to supply those goods at that price. Or they're going to be less quality to make it justifiable to sell at that price. And it hurts the economy. It hurts everyone around them. And what happens, and what this visually looks like, is long lines. And we saw this with the gas shortage, the gas embargo, where the Middle East said they were not going to sell any more gas to us, and prices went skyrocketing, and Nixon took us off the gold standard, and we had those prices, and then he put in the price policy where gas isn't going to be so high, and what happened? Long gas lines. Now, I want you to think of the results of this. Now, before the price limits, the price controls went into place, the price of the gas, you knew what it was. It was the dollar amount, or whatever the peso, I don't know what Argentinians, the currency is. I think it's peso, Argentinian peso or something like that. It was that. It was whatever the price was the cost of the gas. But what happens when a queue and a shortage is in place because of that? Now you have two costs. You have price and you have time. Now just imagine during payday, you go at the end of the workday and you go into Costco and you see that long line in front of the gas stations because Costco sells their gas at a loss to get members. That's one of their strategies. And people will wait like 20, 30 minutes to get gas for a few cents cheaper than it is on the corner. I don't know. Basically, that's what it is. And you just wonder, well, one, how much gas are you burning waiting in line? But two, is your time really worth the dollar savings that it took? Like, if you're waiting 30 minutes for gas and you saved $1 or $2, then you're saying you only are worth $4 an hour? That's just not smart. So maybe you just go pay the higher price to get a half hour back of your life. Okay, but back to the shortage example. So now you're paying 2 costs instead of 1. Instead of just currency, you're paying with your time now. And now imagine those lines being 10, 15, 20 times longer, and not just for oil, but for flour and for rice and for other products. That's how societies get incredibly impacted and become such more an impoverished culture with price controls, because there's more cost added, and it always adds up to more than whatever the price was before, when even considering the inflation rate being significantly high. So hope that we never do that again in our country. We did it before. It doesn't mean we can't do it again. Hopefully we've learned our lesson. If you start hearing politicians talk about those kinds of things, you need to write them, you need to get engaged and tell them you are stupid and go read an economics book, or just look at all the examples we have of it. It's a terrible idea, but because it's so politically juicy, it's such an easy win politically to say, hey, we will no longer make you pay that much for X product. And then the secondary and third effects of that are not really blamed on the politician who did it. And that's what makes it so tempting for them. But we got to stand up. We got to be wise. We got to inform our politicians on economic policy, apparently, because, we're in tons of debt and they do a terrible job with it. So hold them accountable. All right, now let's go out and be successful. God bless.